Now, we got two things that happened that are major that we have to talk about. Number one is that the Colts ended up benching Anthony Richardson after 10 career starts. Rough game against the Texans on the box score. 10 for 32, 31%. I mean, it was the worst completion percentage of a quarterback with 30-plus attempts in the last decade. The only quarterback that was worse was Josh Allen a couple weeks ago against the Houston Texans. And Joe Flacco now will be the starter. Now, the question is, is this benching warranted? Should they have benched him? Was it too early to pull the trigger? What are your thoughts and opinions on this move?
So I think, doing a little bit of research today, coming to find out that they benched him, in fact, because of his lack of leadership roles and the fact that he, subbed himself out because he was tired, which is fake ridiculous. And, seeing a couple reports that came out today that they want a reset. They want AR to get a reset, learn behind Flacco, which Flacco is not a bad vet. He's a really good vet, Super Bowl champion, a guy who essentially led the Browns to the playoffs last year. Had Amari Cooper had probably his best stretch of games he's had in his career. And Joe Flacco's been solid for them when he does play this year. So nothing wrong with having a reset. I think at first when I saw this, I thought, damn, they're benching 10 games because his play, because he has been asked. I'm not going to say in Chicago he has not been good. I thought that, but seeing as it was a little bit more than that, I can understand why. Your alleged leader at quarterback not being a leader at that moment, you don't like that. And plus, I think, people are kind of comparing him to when, like, Josh Allen was bad in the beginning, why they didn't bench him, Zach Wilson. But I think the difference is this team has an opportunity to make the playoffs. This team, whether you think they have a chance or not,
they don't have a
thing.
chance. Okay. They have a chance to make the playoffs. They have a chance to do anything in the playoffs.
Yes. They don't have a chance to do anything, but they have a chance to make the playoffs. And you're probably looking at the situation like, dude, we were this close with Gardner Minshew last year. We expected to come in this year. AR, we believe. I think all of us thought he can be slightly better than Gardner Minshew.
Slightly.
We can, a good amount better. Yes. And we can make a push with the guys we have. He hasn't really, lived up to the billing. He hasn't really improved on a week-by-week basis like you want him to improve. And then on top of that, he comes out and he does that. It's kind of like the kicking to the ass, like, damn, bro, you're supposed to be our leader. You're supposed to be the guy who's leading the charge, and you're kind of moving like this is kind of crazy. So I understand where the Colts are coming from. You need a reset. You want to put the guy in, because it's not just about the quarterback. It's about everybody else in the field. It's about everybody else in your team. It's about the wide receivers. It's about the running backs. What about them? If you do that, you just leaving them out to dry. You too tired. You checking yourself out. Brother, you have a game that you're trying to win. That game was winnable. That game was very much winnable. You had a game you're trying to win, and you just kind of left your guys out there to dry. I don't think Joe Flacco would do that. I think the Colts are looking at this like, we have our opportunity here. We can just make the playoffs. Making the playoffs for a team like that is an accomplishment in itself. And we have other guys on this team that wants to compete, wants to play hard. Guys like Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, and Olin Boyd. So I guess they put the guy in who is a vet, who understands the situation, a guy who AR can learn from. And like I said, this is not the end of the world. This could be maybe the reset AR needed. He already came into the NFL with little to no game film. Like, he already came in, didn't play too much in college, if I remember, to injuries or to just lack of not being good. Yeah. He already had his question marks coming in. Last year, he got hurt. So for him, it's like the lack of game film, and then on top of that, you're doing this, and then you're not playing well. It was just too much piling on. And I guess the Colts are in this situation where it's like, they don't know which direction they want to go in, because you want to think develop the quarterback, but you also want to think compete at a high level. So it's like a nasty middle that they're in. But I understand it after like reading all the reports and seeing where they're coming from. I get why they benched AR, and Joe Flacco is not a bad person to bench him for.
I have a lot of mixed emotions, but I'm going to try and stay on theme of the show and pick a side. I believe they made a bad decision. I believe the Indianapolis Colts rushed to make this decision. The idea that he was benched because he tapped out, he was tired, he said he needed a break, and he kind of was joking about it a little bit in the presser, kind of took it like a joke for a little while, for a bit, I would say it sounded like that. I can understand where that may rub some teammates the wrong way, because you're supposed to be the captain of the team, you're supposed to be the leader, and there are situations in place that if you are tired, you can run plays that can give you a breather. Hand the ball off to an all-pro and Jonathan Taylor. Give him the rock, and you can give yourself a couple of plays rest. You have time in between plays that you can go and you can catch your breath in that sense too. You don't need to come off the field. Now, we can all agree that he has not played the best. I think that in this game versus the Texans, I think there were a few missed opportunities being sold by his receivers a couple of times. But, of course, we're not going to say that he's not to blame in and of itself either. That being said, you picked him at number 4 knowing he was a project, knowing that you had a belief in your system, in Shane Steichen, that he can come in and he can mold Anthony Richardson to be potentially Josh Allen, to be potentially Lamar Jackson, because he's this physical freak. He has this insane rifle for an arm. He needed refinement. And with Shane Steichen, you believe that you could do that. Now, we all believed, especially after watching Gardner Minshew be a game away from making the playoffs, that if you can go ahead and have this offensive output with Gardner Minshew, why can't you do it with Anthony Richardson? So we were all in that same belief, especially in the limited opportunity we saw him last year where he flashed. As a rusher, most definitely. As a passer, really needed refinement in that regard, was wildly inaccurate in that moment, but also showed flashes even in that Rams game where down 2 touchdowns, he was a playmaker and was able to go ahead and push that game into overtime. Although they fell short, he showed a flash there. He's played 10 games. The big issue with Anthony Richardson is that he needs playing time. He needs to be on the field. Trey Lance's huge knock when they drafted him number 3 overall was that he played almost no football except that one season where he had 40 touchdowns, and it was amazing, and the main reason why he was drafted number 3. Anthony Richardson was drafted number 4 off of potential and hype. Imagine if the Bills gave up on him after 2 seasons, after back-to-back being dead last in completion percentage. We would not have the top 2, top 3 quarterback in the National Football League right now. There are other quarterbacks, like you mentioned, that definitely should have had their jobs more at stake and haven't. But because you have the Indianapolis Colts who, for, again, why I don't know, I don't believe that they should be rushing this process, because they were a game away last year and they felt like, hey, we got a good roster now. We can go and we can make the playoffs. You came into this situation knowing it'd be a project. The Colts were not supposed to be good last year. They were supposed to be good this year because of expectations based off of what happened at the end of last year. But after immediately realizing, oh, wow, our defense got hurt, it's really not that good, and Anthony Richardson needs a lot of refinement, let's use this season as a learning curve, because that was what last season was supposed to be for him. So I would say this was a bad move by the Indianapolis Colts, and they continue to make poor franchise decisions stemming all the way back from the end of Peyton Manning's tenure when they failed to put an offensive line in front of him. He gets injured. Andrew Luck has the same unfortunate situation where he's getting bruised and beat up because that offensive line was bad. They finally figure it out, get a great offensive line. Andrew Luck says, I'm out of here. You guys wasted my time too much. I'm gone. And now Anthony Richardson, you took as a project, and it's not working out as according to plan, but you're trying to pivot way too soon. That's where you lose me.
It makes me wonder where this really comes from. Like, is this Jim Irsay being very reactionary like we've known he's been in the past? Does this come from Chris Ballard or Shane Steichen, who think, maybe am I on the hot seat if we go out there and only win 6 or 7 games this season? Because it's really difficult to spin this in a logical way for like a long-term view on the Colts. Short-term view, yeah, like right today, Joe Flacco is a better quarterback. I don't think anyone's arguing that. Sure. Joe Flacco is probably going to go out there and win you more games than Anthony Richardson would do. So if your goal is let's win as many games as possible this year, okay, sure. But I don't know many franchises that are out there drafting quarterbacks in the top 5 just for 10 starts later being like, you know what, this isn't working. We got to go to the backup because he's more refined. He's the veteran. He can win games. It doesn't really make any sense to me. And I was a bit surprised how many people were defending Richardson, especially off this last game, because when I was watching the game, the stats were ugly, but I didn't think he was as bad as what the stats were showing. They had some miscues offensively. They had multiple drop passes. There was one ball down the middle of the field where the right sideline was wide open. That's where Richardson threw it. Pittman's running down the field. He looks to his left where there's a safety, goes incomplete. If Pittman goes over his right shoulder, that's probably a 40-yard gain down the field. So everything isn't Anthony Richardson's fault, right? So I don't think that his stat line, and when you see the 30% completion percentage, and obviously the same thing goes for Josh Allen when he only completed 30% of his passes, but not everything has been Richardson's fault. He also hasn't made his life better. You know, there's been plenty of times where he's just wildly inaccurate. There's been plenty of times where he's not taking the easy things, and he has the highest ADOT in the NFL because every throw has to be 20 yards down the field. But I really do think subbing himself out was probably the nail in his coffin. Definitely. Right? Like tapping yourself on the head. When I first saw the play, I'm thinking he got injured, right? But then he like jogs off the field. Doesn't look like he hit his head on the turf, so he's not concussed. He doesn't have any sort of limp. His shoulder seems fine. So when it happened, I'm like, why is he subbing himself out? And it's funny because the next play, it's like 3rd and 15 at this point, and it's a handoff to Jonathan Taylor. if that was going to be the play call all along, why? What's the point of even subbing yourself out? Again, he probably didn't have the play call in his helmet when it's going on, but just a really questionable decision. And for the Colts, like, I haven't seen any Colts fan. I don't know a ton, but I haven't seen any Colts fan that I see either. I'm following on Twitter or when I go into the mentions of everyone when like Schefter breaks the news. Haven't seen any Colts fan being like, "This is the move. This is the thing we got to do." Because I think everyone understands, Colts fans aside, Colts fans and NFL fans, this defense is one of the worst in the NFL right now. This defense cannot stop anybody in the league, and the offense has some pieces, right? They have some weapons, wide receiver, running back, of course, Jonathan Taylor. They have real things offensively that you can succeed with. But this team isn't beating anybody in the AFC. Let's be dead ass. Like, are they even making the playoffs? Number one, since the AFC is kind of weak right now, there's a chance, right? You get 9 wins, maybe you could do it. But bro, you're telling me you're going to be a 7 seed. Best case scenario, a 6 seed. KC, you're going to be Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo. Like, are we serious? You legitimately think you have a chance against any of those teams? It's not identical to, but all the things we've said about the Steelers for years, where it's like every single year you're kind of setting yourself up to be like the 7th or 6th seed in the AFC just to get washed in the first round of the playoffs and just rinse and repeat. Not trying to disrespect you Steelers fans.
Was that expectation?
I know you guys are
playoffs this year though
for the Colts.
Yeah. I think of getting close in the hunt.
I don't know. I had them, I think, 2nd place, but I think all of you guys had them at 3rd or worse.
I was going to say, I did not believe in this Colts team coming into the season. The schedule scared me off more than anything. And the defense got worse because it was obviously banged up and you lose Gilmore.
It's tough. I don't get it.
Not Gilmore. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
you lost some pieces on the defense, excuse me.
It doesn't make sense to me. I'm an Anthony Richardson fan. You guys know I'm be rooting for him. But, like, okay, let's play this out, right? So you go the rest of the season. Best case scenario, you go 9-8. You lose in the first round of the playoffs. You go into next season. What is it? It's a quarterback battle with your top 5 draft pick who only has 10 games under his belt. You're going to re-sign Joe Flacco and be like, let's run this back?
You let AR develop again in the summer.
And he's the quarterback next year no matter what.
I think so. Joe Flacco is not. I doubt he's coming back to play football.
Well, I don't know if he's going to.
If he does, that's fucking nuts.
But that doesn't make sense either, that you're going to go into next year and be like, no matter what, you're going to be starting, because then it feels like you're just putting yourself in the same situation as this year.
You could put him in a quarterback battle to make him fight for it, but I don't know. Like, they said reset, so whatever that means to them. It's just, he has 10 games under his belt. You need more games, of course, but like, I'm not seeing what you guys are seeing, but do y'all see genuine progression from week by week? I don't. I see up and down. Like, I see sometimes he's good,
it's not
sometimes
linear.
he's bad.
I mean, he has good moments and bad moments.
It's like a roller coaster.
But again, you're 10 starts in. It's hard to just go boop, boop, boop. Like, you usually take some time.
But then you look at the Drew thing and like say, well, why did you start him in the first place? Why not develop him from the start? Why not let him sit if he is a project? We can compare him to that guy, but that guy had.
I mean, to be fair, he basically did sit all of last season.
Well, because he got hurt, not because he.
I know. I'm not saying
he wasn't developing.
Because that guy had games under his belt before he got into the league, and they let him. They weren't playing for anything, so they're letting him. And even then, he didn't have Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor. He didn't have that. He's working with a completely different toolbox than AR is. But it's the same thing. Like, well, Colts, how are you going to develop them, right? It's like they're stuck here, they're stuck there. It's really a shitty ass situation the AR is stuck with, honestly.
I don't think Anthony Richardson got benched because of his performance against the Texans. I think he played well. I think he played well enough to win. You look at the 10 for 32, 22 incompletions, 31% completion percentage. It looks awful. But when watching the film, there were, out of the 22 incompletions, 7 at most bad throws or bad decisions. There were 6 wide receiver drops. 7 if you want to count Michael Pittman having a one-on-one for a touchdown versus the Texans rookie corner Lassiter, and Richardson put it on the money and Pittman couldn't come down with the catch. That would be counted for 7. There were 2 drop touchdowns for sure. A.D. Mitchell dropped the touchdown. He didn't drop it, but he didn't get his second foot in bounds. Yep. And then you had the running back Goodson drop a touchdown on like a wheel route. There were 2 to 3 drop touchdowns in this game. Like, Anthony Richardson did not play bad. The completion percentage is terrible, but this is where context matters behind that stat, because I don't think completion percentage showcases how accurate a quarterback is, because usually it just matters what offense you're in. If you're in an offense that is very safe, you don't throw the ball down the field, you don't take chances, you're going to have a very high completion percentage. You look at the top quarterbacks in the league, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, they're some of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league as well, but they don't have the best completion percentage. They're not in the top 3 year to year all the time. It fluctuates. And you look at Richardson and the position that he's been put in this offense. Number 1 in ADOT, 13.9 yards. League average is 9 yards.
He slings that thing.
He's throwing the ball down the field 4 more yards than the average quarterback. When you have an aggressive offense, naturally, the completions become more improbable. Anthony Richardson right now, he's completing 44% of his passes. It's god-awful. His expected completion percentage on the season is 58.6%. So even on passes he's expected to complete, 58.6% is not a good number. So you're asking him to complete improbable passes more often than not. League average is 66.3%. It's a difference in how the offense is run with AR and Flacco. And there are moments where AR should be hitting the check down and just looking underneath. But the nature of this offense is that they just air the ball down the field with Richardson. And that's usually the only option for him. And with Flacco, the offense is run much different. And Flacco is a more accurate quarterback. But you look at these stats dating back to 2000. Of 816 quarterback seasons since 2000, Richardson's 12.3 air yards per target is the highest mark since 2000. 816 quarterback seasons. So the completion percentage, if it was high, I'd be more shocked if he's completing those passes at such a high rate. And then you get into that he has 10 career starts. Now you look at Richardson. Anthony Richardson EPA per dropback in his first 10 career starts is minus 0.06. Doesn't include runs. This is simply passes. Notable quarterbacks in the first 10 starts with a worst EPA. Josh Allen, Carson Palmer, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, and I'll mention Ryan Tannehill and Sam Darnold as well, because Tannehill proved to be a good quarterback for a couple seasons, and Sam Darnold is in the midst of reviving his career right now. It's only 10 starts. It's only 10 starts. And he wasn't bad against the Texans. I think he was benched because he tapped himself out. And I think the most worrying thing about AR outside of the on-field play is the intangibles, because he clearly doesn't understand the magnitude of the moment and what it means to be a franchise quarterback. It was a 3rd and goal from like the 20-yard line. I know he's tired. It wasn't even that crazy of a run anyway, though. Like, it wasn't like he was running around for like 15 seconds. Like,
he did throw some dude off his back.
Yeah, he did. I understand that. But, Shane Steichen, it's highly unlikely that 3rd down play was going to be a pass.
Yeah.
Given the game was 10-20, a field goal makes it a 1-possession game. AR is not going to throw the ball down the field. You're not going to risk a turnover in that situation or a sack and knock you out further in field position and make it a harder field goal attempt. It was going to be a run anyway. So it's like, just stay in the game and hand the ball off, dude.
Yep.
Like, it's not that hard. So that, to me, pissed me off more than anything. But I do think the talk around his performance is disingenuous because he's an easy target. You look at his completion percentage, it's easy to say he just stinks. But I actually see a lot of high-end flashes still. And the reason why he was drafted fourth overall pick, he still makes these throws. I mean, in this Texans game alone, he had like 5+ attempts of 20+ yards. I mean, there are some quarterbacks this season that don't have that in the entire year.
For sure.
So he is airing the ball out, and that's why the completion percentage numbers look worse. If those drops don't happen, we're talking about 31% to 56%. 56% is not good, but it's a lot better than 31%. It looks a whole lot better, and they probably win the freaking game as well because they were touchdowns that were dropped. So with Anthony Richardson, I think as much as his inaccuracies have been an issue, these are also things that have been an issue. So this is according to True Media. Anthony Richardson is number 1 in inaccurate percentage at 17.3%. Number 1 in the NFL. He's the most inaccurate quarterback in the NFL. But take a look at this. He is also number 1 in receiver error percentage at 9.8%. He is also number 1 in throws where he is hit as he's thrown at 6.8%. And he's also number 1 in passes defended at 12.8%. He is not getting support either. And in this game, he was pressured on 64% on his dropbacks. I mean, he was running for his life. He was under constant duress. And right now, that's what teams are doing. They're just blitzing AR and they're saying, beat us down the field. Throw these one-on-ones. We're going to let you do this. So I think the benching was warranted only because of what he did when he tapped out. Mm-hmm. And if this is the decision, that is going to linger on the entire season, I think the Colts messed up drastically. I'm under the assumption the Colts are saying, okay, AR, this Sunday we have a primetime game against the Vikings. You are getting backlash in the media like there's no tomorrow. You're going to be benched this game because we're going to hold you accountable for subbing yourself out the game, because you have to be held accountable for that. And then we'll start you after the Vikings game. And the only thing that can derail that plan
shouldn't even play against the
is
Vikings.
if Joe Flacco wins the game. If Joe Flacco wins the game, this becomes a muddy situation. But if he loses the game, you just go back to Richardson. So I think if this is a move to where he's benched for the entirety of the season, it's terrible. But if it's just for this one game, I'm fine with it. And Flacco gives them a better chance to win, but they lost to the Jaguars a couple weeks ago with Flacco when they were winless. Yeah. So it's not like he gives them such a better chance to win that it is worth risking the development of your 4th overall pick quarterback.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like, all of the intangible stuff off the field has been like a glowing 10 out of 10 for Richardson, right? He was named team captain. Don't remember it was this year or last year, there was a report that he like goes in, he helps clean up in the cafeteria and stuff. So for the most part, he's been pretty damn good with all of the off the field, like trying to be the face of a franchise type of guy. This more than anything feels like just kind of a blip on his radar. And well, I definitely agree, Joel, right? Like, he's taking so many shots down the field. I don't think he has to take this many shots, right? Shane Steichen isn't calling 4 verts every play. Shane Steichen's like, go throw the ball 35 yards. Go look for the go route as your first read every single play. Because, I mean, we know Shane Steichen, right? 3 years ago with Jalen Hurts, one of the best offenses in football. They were doing a bunch of stuff, intermediate, getting A.J. Brown on those crossing routes, having him and Smitty win one-on-one. So it's not like Shane Steichen is designing an offense to every single play attack 20, 30 yards down the field. But that's what Anthony Richardson goes for. He's like, I'm going to take those shots. I'm going to be an aggressive quarterback. And it's hurting him right now because of the completion percentage. But I hope you're right. I hope it's just a one-game thing where, listen, we got to hold you accountable for subbing yourself out, because to sit him for the rest of the season doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, the weird thing about Steichen is that he's really not running those RPOs for Richardson. Like, they're far and few between.
Yeah, because he doesn't want him to get hurt.
Yeah, or maybe he just thinks that Richardson's going to airmail those passes, you know, because...
You also have to make quick decisions there, too, you know? Like, you have to get that ball out right away, or else you get a legal man downfield. You can't be indecisive, because then you'll fumble the ball if you try to put it into JT's stomach, so you got to make quick decisions there.